about artificial intelligence, they think of computers, software, systems.
Mm-hmm.
They think maybe of robotics.
Mm-hmm.
What was your exposure to artificial intelligence in your studies and also in your initial work?
Yeah, well, for me, it was actually really important to get people to define what it meant for themselves, because a lot of people's definitions of artificial intelligence
Yes,
is sort of
we should take the time and call the bullshit bingo word and say, okay,
totally.
maybe you can give us a pragmatic and understandable understanding of what are we even talking about when we're talking about intelligence, because I think there's different levels of intelligence.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe we can also
is.
kind of link that to a roadmap, because I think there's a roadmap ahead of us. I think there's decades and decades of unfolding artificial intelligence and I think that what we are just at the precursors. I think a lot of people are already anticipating, I don't know, robots doing all of our work. We're just going to be on vacation or whatever, or extinct or something like that. But I think because this podcast is kind of for business people who are pragmatic and are trying to stay on top of the disruptive nature of our technology, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Do you want to give it a shot and maybe from your perspective,
Sure.
give a definition of what are we talking about when we're talking about intelligence before we even get to artificial intelligence, and then I might ask you the challenging question: is artificial intelligence intelligent? But let's start off with a definition of intelligence.
Yeah, let's start with the easy philosophical questions. Yeah. Hey, Mark, but well, for me, intelligence is as a concept something that is in many domains itself. Like artificial intelligence, for me, I think about intelligence when it comes to emotional intelligence. I think of intelligence as a concept around cultural intelligence. I think about intelligence in the concept of super, let's get a bit geeky type of intellectual forms of intelligence.
But that's highly cognitive, right? That's associative, that's cognitive. That kind of means that you're I think you're going for the goal, for the holy grail of intelligence. I think artificial intelligence is a little far away from that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think at the moment AI, it's a domain of computer science that essentially is emphasizing the creation of intelligent machines that work and react like humans. And so in the very first paper I wrote in my doctoral studies I went back 5,000 years. Sounds a bit crazy, doesn't it? But 5,000 years where we think the consideration about intelligence from early philosophers, earlier civilizations was something where people started to realize that perhaps there's components of intelligence that could be automated. And even a long time ago, there were forms of very early machine where people were starting to try to make sense of the sense of moving parts, often starting with how can we actually augment a human personal body with a form of machine that can actually help enhance the concept of advantage of human.
My brain is racing. I'm creating links between your various backgrounds, but before I make an assumption about what might link into what you're saying, can you think of a specific example of such a kind of machine?
Yeah. Well, there's a few that actually came from the sort of around Dubai where we were earlier in the year. Amazing it's a hard word to say, automatons, which was essentially like forms of, they didn't have engines in them, but they actually there was
a French movie that had one of those things that you could wind up and
Yes, but some of the very first iterations of that, created by incredible scientists in the sort of Middle Eastern Arabic world, were there for people's entertainment. So you would essentially have people who may not necessarily been in the hierarchy cranking a handle, and then various figures would play music or they would dance, and that was thousands of years ago. And so now, as people invented other forms of combustion engine and other forms of energy utilization, the whole concept of artificial intelligence and robotics can now start to come to the fore, which is why AI and technology is strongly connected to having reliable and accessible forms of energy and electricity to then start to speed up the process and manual processes that we would have seen in early manufacturing days.
Do you know what I thought of when I was listening to you talking, which is, it's great listening to you. you have a strong, and I'm a big fan of organizational development and the theory of organizational development. I think it's something that many of us study in university, and then we never think it has any relevance in our world, but it has so much relevance. I was actually when I was listening to you, I was kind of realizing that systems, okay, organizational systems, are actually, they're not electronic, they're not robotic, but they are a form of trying to transfer individual intelligence to group intelligence.
Yes.
And I think a lot of us can tell lengthy stories of frustration of how systems often fail to take care of our needs, which I think is maybe something that's also a crossover to artificial intelligence. I think there's a great danger with artificial intelligence. Maybe I'm just being a little bit of devil's advocate. That I think a lot of artificial intelligence, the way it's conceived at a very low level, won't be intelligent. It'll be faster automation.
Yeah.
So
well,
go ahead.
Yeah, one of the considerations that, of course, we have, and it's quite public, is that artificial intelligence will theoretically mirror our own forms of intelligence for a while,
because it has to get the intelligence from somewhere, right? This is one of my classical pub speeches. When I'm feeling good and I've had a couple beers, I said, when we're talking about artificial, which I find completely fascinating, I often ask the stupid question, and I think the stupid questions are the best questions. Okay, what is intelligence? Where's it going to get the intelligence from? And there's an underlying assumption here that the mother and father of artificial intelligence, human beings, that we are intelligent. And I think there's plenty of examples of human intelligence, but I think there's lots of examples of quite the opposite.
Yes. I always say thank you to ChatGPT whenever I utilize it, just because I think, well, there's and I know that was a big talk of the town in the beginning of the year, is something that just, incredible sort of utilization and take up within a really, really short period of time. Like, I think it was something that within 2 months, where the latest iteration was launched in, I think, November last year, that in 2 months there was 100 million users of ChatGPT, and it's extraordinary because it's the first time in a long time that these sorts of natural language processing tools are accessible. That even kids at school can get their assignment in draft, hopefully.
It's funny that you mentioned that,
but what does that mean for us?
I agree with you. By the way, when you thank GPT, I think they were saying that metaphorically, right? Or do you actually write?
No,
thank
I
you
say, oh, thank you.
You caught me. It's funny because my initial concerns about AI and whether it was useful or not was kind of overcome when I started playing with ChatGPT about a month ago.
Do you say thank you, Mark?
And I was actually feeling guilty because I'm constantly giving it commands. Give me this, give me that. I'm like, I grew up typically Texan where you say please and thank you for everything.
Yeah.
So
start doing that.
I was like,
start doing that.
Yeah, I did that a couple times because I felt weird constantly, because I think for anybody out there who doesn't really understand where AI might take us, I think ChatGPT and similar platforms are a great entry point to try it out and to get a feel. I used it for putting together a portfolio management program where I had a list of, I think I had 50 different topics that were going around in my head, and for me to all verbalize them and put them to bullet points would have taken me, I would have burned out halfway through the process. And with ChatGPT, it's great. I put in my prompts. It writes sensational. You might rearrange the bullet points, or you might have a different opinion, or sometimes, ChatGPT, in my opinion, is wrong. But you even have a possibility of putting your reason in there, why you think it's wrong. I think it's a great starting point.